Red Bull, a company that started as an energy drink brand, is now the most dominant team in Formula One. And when asked about Red Bull drivers, most people would probably name Vettel, Max, Webber, Ricciardo, and Checo. While these drivers are remembered for their impressive results during the team's competitive years, there were other drivers in the beginning who also played a key part in the team's success. Being a Red Bull driver is a very challenging task, as you'll see in the video. Plus, there's always some controversy surrounding the Red Bull drivers. The team is very ruthless in its driver selection, and only a select few get a chance to race for them. Some might even say that driving for Red Bull can be a little intimidating at times. However, Red Bull gives opportunities to many young drivers, and over the years, some serious generational talents have come out of their driver academy. But this video is not about those drivers. Today we're going to take a look at some of the drivers who drove for Red Bull over the years but have kind of faded from our memories. Also, when I refer to someone as a Red Bull driver, I am including those who raced for Toro Rosso, or whatever they are called now, as many of those drivers were promoted to the senior Red Bull team. When Red Bull first joined the Formula One grid in 2005, one driver raced with them for 4 full seasons, and that driver was none other than David Coulthard. I was a little skeptical about including David in this list because his regular appearances and commentary in F1 these days make it seem like everyone knows he drove for Red Bull. During his 4 years at Red Bull, David outperformed his teammates for the most part. Only in 2008 did Mark Webber finish higher than him in the standings. David also scored 2 podiums for Red Bull. He retired from Formula One at the end of 2008. After that, David competed in DTM for a few years before saying goodbye to the world of competitive motorsports. David is still a close member of the Red Bull family and is often seen participating in many promotional activities for them. Another driver who raced for Red Bull in the beginning alongside David Coulthard was Christian Killian. Christian was the first Red Bull junior driver who made it into Formula One. He had previously driven for Jaguar and impressed everyone with his reliable performances in his first year. After Red Bull acquired Jaguar, the team decided to keep Killian for the 2005 and 2006 seasons. In both seasons, he was outperformed by his teammate. Killian left the team at the end of 2006 and was replaced by the Aussie Mark Webber. Killian then remained as a test and reserve driver for several F1 teams before switching to endurance racing and still competes in the GT series. There was one more driver who was there at the beginning with Red Bull, and that was Vittorio Liuzzi. Initially, Liuzzi was the main contender for the second seat alongside Coulthard, but in the end, Red Bull decided to go with Christian Killian. However, there was an agreement that for a few races, Liuzzi would take the wheel. He scored his first ever F1 point at the San Marino Grand Prix and also drove for Red Bull in Spain, Monaco and the European GP before handing the car back to Christian Killian. When Red Bull acquired the Minardi F1 team and rebranded it as Toro Rosso in 2006, Liuzzi was given a seat in the sister team. He scored his first points for the team with an 8th place finish at the United States Grand Prix. He continued with Toro Rosso in 2007, but failed to impress the team enough to earn a new contract despite a strong performance in China and outscoring his teammates. At the end of 2007, Liuzzi left the team and became a test and reserve driver for Force India. Later, he drove for the Force India and HRT before moving to GT racing. In 2006, another driver who was part of the Red Bull team was Robert Dornbos. Robert joined F1 as a test and reserve driver for the Jordan F1 team and drove a few races for Minardi. When Red Bull acquired the Minardi team, Robert failed to secure a racing seat. He was then signed by Red Bull as a test and reserve driver. Luckily, Christian Horner, the Red Bull chief, had also been Robert's boss when he was racing in Formula 3000. When Christian Killian was dropped by Red Bull after the Italian Grand Prix, Robert was promoted to the second Red Bull seat and raced in the remaining 3 races of the season. He performed quite well, finishing in the top 13. However, he was demoted to the test and reserve driver role for 2007 as Red Bull signed Mark Webber for the second seat. And that was basically the end of Robert's F1 career. When the Toro Rosso F1 team debuted in 2006, the driver that partnered with Vittorio Liuzzi was Scott Speed. I mean, could there be a better name for a racing driver than Scott Speed? At that time, Speed was the first American driver to race in Formula One since Michael Andretti in 1993. In his first year with Toro Rosso, he performed quite decently. He was often in the top 15 and came close to scoring points on a couple of occasions. Unfortunately, under the previous points distribution system, only the top 8 were awarded points, so Speed failed to secure any in his first season. His teammate managed to nab a single point at the USGP and beat Speed in the standings. Speed was also unlucky, suffering several retirements due to the terrible reliability of the car. At the Australian Grand Prix, Speed was fined $5,000 for using inappropriate language towards David Coulthard during a post-race stewards hearing. Speed continued with Toro Rosso in 2007, but that year turned out to be a total disaster, with Speed suffering 7 DNFs in the first 10 races and failing to score any points. Before the Hungarian Grand Prix, Speed was replaced by Sebastian Vettel, who was also part of the Red Bull driver development program. He continued his association with Red Bull and raced in NASCAR for the Red Bull team and later moved to Rallycross. In 2008, Sebastian Bourdais replaced Vitantonio Liuzzi at Toro Rosso and became teammates with Sebastian Vettel. Vettel was on fire that season, even outperforming the senior Red Bull teammates Coulthard and Webber. While Bourdais put in great efforts, he wasn't anywhere near Vettel's level but still performed decently for a rookie. Vettel finished 8th with 35 points and 1 win, while Bourdais finished 17th with 4 points. Thanks to Vettel's extraordinary performances, Toro Rosso finished ahead of Red Bull in the standings. Bourdais' contract was extended for 2009, this time partnering with the rookie Sebastian Buemi. How did so many drivers named Sebastian end up at Toro Rosso?
What the heck?
Anyway, 2009 didn't go very well for Bourdais, as he was slightly outperformed by his rookie teammate. Before the Hungarian Grand Prix, the team announced that Bourdais was replaced by Jaime Alguersuari. This decision turned out to be quite interesting for Toro Rosso, as it was ruled a breach of contract, and Toro Rosso had to pay Bourdais around $2 million to settle the case. One thing I've noticed with Red Bull is that if they are planning to replace drivers mid-season, it's almost always before the Hungarian GP. Anyway, in 2009, when Sebastian Buemi joined Toro Rosso, he performed quite well, scoring 6 points and finishing 16th in the standings. He outperformed both Bourdais and Alguersuari that season, with Alguersuari suffering 5 DNFs in the 8 races he took part in. For 2010, both Buemi and Alguersuari were retained by Toro Rosso. They performed at fairly comparable levels, with Buemi finishing the season slightly higher in the standings. There was just a 3 points difference between them, with Buemi scoring points in 4 races compared to Alguersuari scoring in 3. Both achieved good results for the team and were consistently close to the points, which led to both of their contracts being extended for 2011. In 2011, the Toro Rosso car was more competitive, and both drivers demonstrated their skills in taking advantage of that. This time, Alguersuari outperformed Buemi in the standings by a significant margin. Jaime finished 14th with 26 points, while Buemi finished 15th, 11 points behind. Thanks to their efforts, Toro Rosso finished 8th in the Constructors' Championship that season. It seemed like Toro Rosso finally had a promising driver pairing. However, at the end of 2011, it was announced that both Buemi and Alguersuari would be replaced by Daniel Ricciardo and Jean-Éric Vergne for the 2012 season. Buemi remained a test and reserve driver for Red Bull and is still closely associated with the team. However, he failed to make a comeback to Formula 1. After Formula 1, Buemi achieved significant success in other racing categories, winning endurance championships, the Formula E Championship, and multiple Le Mans titles. As for Jaime, after departing from Toro Rosso, he competed in Formula E for 1 season and eventually retired from motorsports completely in 2015. He then became a DJ and currently focuses mainly on music. Moving on, I won't dwell on Ricciardo since we're all familiar with him. Instead, let's talk about his 2012 teammate Jean-Éric Vergne. Vergne came to Formula 1 after being the runner-up in the Formula Renault series. Partnering with Daniel Ricciardo wasn't going to be easy, especially considering Daniel had half a season's worth of F1 experience from racing in 2011 with HRT. So it was expected that Daniel would have an edge over his teammate. However, that didn't happen. Both drivers were extremely close, and while Daniel had more points finishes, it was Vergne who scored more points and finished ahead of Ricciardo in the standings. Both drivers showed great promise and were retained for 2013. Once again, they were really close in 2013, but this time it was Ricciardo who finished ahead, scoring 20 points compared to Vergne's 13 points. At the end of 2013, Ricciardo was promoted to the senior Red Bull team, while Vergne stayed at Toro Rosso and was partnered with rookie Danny Kvyat for 2014. This time, Vergne showed better consistency in scoring points with 7 points finishes and finishing ahead of his teammate in the standings by 14 points. When Sebastian Vettel left Red Bull at the end of 2014, the team decided to promote Kvyat instead of Vergne, even though Vergne had outqualified him. I feel like that was a bit of a wrong decision by Red Bull. He was dropped by Toro Rosso at the end of 2014 and was replaced by Carlos Sainz. Vergne failed to secure an F1 seat for 2015, but was signed by Ferrari as their test and development driver. After Formula 1, Vergne competed in Formula E, where he won 2 back-to-back championships. He still competes in Formula E and endurance racing. I am not including Danny Kvyat in this video because I think everyone remembers the torpedo, and I've already covered him a little in my video about the best rookies of the last decade. So if you're interested, you can check out that video. Plus, I think Danny deserves his own separate video. Let me know in the comments what you guys think. And the last driver on the list is Brendan Hartley. Hartley was given the Toro Rosso drive at the 2017 US GP, where he filled in for Pierre Gasly, who was participating in the final round of the Super Formula Championship. Then, Hartley took over Danny Kvyat's seat for the remaining 3 races of the season, in which he suffered 2 retirements. At the end of 2017, Hartley was announced as the Toro Rosso driver alongside Pierre Gasly for the 2018 season. Overall, throughout the season, Gasly appeared to be the more complete and quicker driver. Hartley had a terrible first half of the season, but showed good improvement in the second half. He also suffered a lot of bad luck that season with contacts and car issues. In the end, Hartley was beaten by his teammate Gasly in the standings, as Gasly finished 15th with 29 points, while Hartley finished 19th with just 4 points. Hartley was not signed for another year by Toro Rosso and was replaced by Alex Albon for 2019. He failed to find an F1 seat for 2019 and was later signed by Ferrari as one of their development drivers. After saying goodbye to Formula 1, Hartley jumped back into endurance racing and won multiple endurance championships. And yes, I know people are going to joke that I missed Nick de Vries, but come on, it's not even been a year. And that's it for the video, guys. If you enjoyed it, give it a like and please don't forget to subscribe. Also, let me know in the comments down below if I forgot to include any driver, and I'll see you guys in the next video.